Ciao a tutti, sono Giovanni Civerra di Radio Sonora. Oggi abbiamo qui il piacere di avere con noi Patrick Zaki in occasione del Festival della Libertà di Stampa. Ciao Patrick, intanto
Ciao.
come stai? Patrick è stato un ricercatore ed è un attivista che è specializzato nella tutela dei diritti umani. Poi correggimi se sbaglio qualcosa.
Certo.
E tristemente noto in realtà ai più per la vicenda che l'ha coinvolto, è stato carcerato per 22 mesi nelle carceri egiziane per la sua attività di attivista e di ricercatore. E poi è stato liberato il 20 luglio del 2023 con un decreto di grazia presidenziale. Anche a seguito della sua vicenda ha continuato comunque a fare l'attività di attivista e di ricercatore, anche intensificando la propria attività.
Honestly, to speak about like what's the main reason of my imprisonment, it's a big question. For me, I think the main reason of my imprisonment is the participation in the revolution in 2011 and all what I did from activism after the revolution. It wasn't only about 2019 and what happened before or after 2019. It's about my whole work, because there is an important quote for the Egyptian president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi when he said that everyone participated in the revolution, he will be arrested. For sure, the Egyptian government, after my imprisonment, they tried to legitimize my imprisonment by saying or mentioning that my case, because of an article about the Coptic minority, which is something I'm proud of, because that's the core of my work, defending minorities, religious minorities, gender minorities. So it was the reason that they are trying to make it publicly for the international community. But the real thing was a collective work which they asked me about when I was kidnapped in one of their interior security buildings, and when I disappeared for more than 36 hours.
Grazie. C'è un aspetto in particolar modo che mi colpisce dalla tua vicenda, ed è il modo in cui è finita la tua carcerazione, il modo in cui ti hanno liberato, che in realtà accomuna sia te che all'Abdel Fattah, scarcerato recentemente. E ho visto tu tra l'altro ti sei mosso molto per la questione che ha riguardato, ed è il fatto che voi siete stati liberati, come avviene per molti prigionieri di coscienza, attraverso un decreto di grazia presidenziale. Quindi non si può dire, correggimi anche qui se sbaglio, che voi abbiate ottenuto effettivamente giustizia, cioè nel senso che sia stato detto che la vostra attività di ricercatori, di giornalisti e di attivisti fosse legittima, ma perché il potere ha deciso che voi potevate essere liberi in quel momento.
Yeah, it's very important to know that in Egypt it's not only about Patrick Zaki and Abdel Fattah. There is more than 45,000 political prisoners who are still there in the prisons. When we are talking about Patrick, about Ala, we are examples, a few names and thousands of names. We should not only concentrate on both names and leave the others. For sure, the release of Ala Fattah, there is a main rule for the diplomatic work, for the international pressure, but we should think also about the unlucky people who don't have the same support and same international pressure to be released. I'm always thinking about Ala. He's for me an example, because he was the one who played an important role in Revolution 2011, and he inspired me a lot. But also I'm thinking about my colleagues who are still there in the prison behind the bars, and I'm still in contact with them, asking about them. I'm thinking about everyone. For sure, the political pressure and the diplomacy works, but it's important also to know that not everyone have the privilege of being supported by all this kind of international support, like my case and Ala's case. So we should think about it in a collective way, to think about everyone who's in the prison and how to release all of those prisoners who are still there in the prison in Egypt.
Grazie. In particolare poi penso in questi casi sia anche poi fondamentale quello che è il ruolo della comunità civile. Anche nel tuo caso la comunità civile si è mossa, soprattutto il lavoro dell'ONG può essere un modo per contrastare quello che...
Sì, il lavoro dell'ONG e tutte le istituzioni italiane è molto importante per me, perché il mio presente oggi in questa locazione è il frutto del lavoro di tutti ONG, istituzioni italiane, tutte le persone manifesta per me in tutte le piazze in Italia.
Passerei ora adesso a un tema che ti sta molto a cuore, quindi propriamente quello della libertà di stampa. Adesso ci troviamo davanti al prima volta, possiamo dire, che l'umanità si trova direttamente proiettata nei propri telefoni un vero e proprio genocidio, è giusto chiamarlo con questa parola. E questo lo vediamo grazie al lavoro che fanno centinaia, possiamo dire, di attivisti e giornalisti palestinesi che coraggiosamente continuano a operare sul campo di Gaza.
Yeah, it's very important when we are talking about the freedom of press, freedom of expression, to mention Palestine. That's something that I want to stress on, like the ongoing genocide in Palestine, and specifically when we are talking about freedom of journalism, we should remember that more than 152 journalists have been killed systematically in Palestine, and we should also stress on that it's not only about the 7th of October, but one of the most iconic journalists in the history of Palestine is Shireen Abu Akleh, who have been killed and sniped by the Israeli forces on purpose to stop her work in the occupied lands of Palestine. And also, not only Shireen Abu Akleh, but the Israeli government work a lot to make propaganda to criminalize all the collaborators of Al Jazeera, to kill them systematically on purpose, to stop the coverage, because Al Jazeera at one time was the only channel that making a real coverage for what's happening from Gaza, inside Gaza. So it's really important to put the stress on what's happening before the 7th of October and also after the 7th of October. And let's remember names like Anas al-Sharif. He was one of the most courageous reporters and journalists inside Gaza who have been killed on purpose by the Israeli forces. Not only him, but as I mentioned, a huge number of journalists that we should think about them. There were our eyes on Gaza, but now, as you see, the coverage is much less than before because of the systematic killing of the journalists inside Gaza.
È molto importante quello che hai ricordato adesso, cioè nel senso, spesso noi come occidentali tendiamo a pensare che il 7 ottobre sia stata una data di riferimento da cui è iniziato qualcosa. In realtà è qualcosa che va avanti da molto tempo, e quello che stavi raccontando mi fa anche venire in mente quello che sta accadendo adesso e che accade da molti anni, per esempio nella regione del Massaferiatta, e dell'occupazione anche delle terre da parte dei coloni, non solo quindi dai militari. E quindi trovo fondamentale il fatto di evidenziare anche quello che stava già accadendo prima, perché spesso...
Yeah, the plan of the Israeli government is really obvious. It's not only about Gaza. Gaza is a coverage for what they are doing since years and years and years. The story started in 1948 when the Israeli government and the Israelis arrived and occupied the lands of Palestine. When we are talking about Gaza, it's only something that they are using right now to try to make and public opinion about that we are trying to kill terrorism, but the real terrorism is the Israeli government and the government of Netanyahu, Ben Gvir. Those are the public figures of terrorism from my point of view. It's not only about Gaza, it's also there is a huge history of what they are doing in the West Bank. They are trying to occupy every day some villages from the West Bank. They are killing people. They are killing. We know the story of the village that you just mentioned, because it's about a film that win like Oscar and do a huge publicity. But believe me, like there is so much other villages that don't have the same focus and highlight like this one, because they are not privileged or not lucky enough to have an artist who made film about them. But like West Bank full of so much stories that's really not less terrifying than what's happening right now in Gaza on daily basis. There is like attacks over the West Bank. There is attacks over Gaza, and the world is living in silence. It's really important to think about this, and the terrorism of the Israeli government can even reach the borders, the seas, like as we see, like while I'm talking right now, they just arrested the activist from Global Sumut Flotilla, which is something really against the international law. So let's think about all the forms of repression, all the forms of attacks and terrorism that the Israeli government and Netanyahu are practicing against everyone from all the world right now.
Ne approfitto, visto che hai citato la Global Sumut Flotilla, gli occhi di tutti noi in questi giorni e soprattutto in queste ultimissime ore. Adesso ci è arrivata appunto la notizia dell'arresto, dell'abbordaggio della nave Alma, e ne approfitto appunto anche per trattare un altro tema che si collega a questo festival, cioè l'informazione italiana sulla Global Summit Flottiglia ha creato, se possiamo dire, anche una sorta di disinformazione, concentrandosi soprattutto su quelle che potevano essere conseguenze negative di questa missione, non per esempio sull'enorme portata storica che ha questo evento.
Yeah, the importance of Global Sumud is that there is some courageous activists from all over the world that they choose and they decided that they don't want to live anymore watching the televised genocide on daily basis. So they try to broke the thread over Gaza that's happening. But it's very important also when we are talking about Global Sumud to mention that the priority and our focus is Gaza, not the Global Sumud. The Global Sumud is a tool for Gaza, to reach Gaza. So the focus should be on Gaza and what's happening inside Gaza. We should always make a differentiation. All my appreciation to my colleagues who are in Global Sumud, but at the end of the day, they are white people on the ships, like going through the sea. At the end of the day, they will be back. But the people in Gaza are on daily basis, risking their life, risking their daughters, sons. Everyone is under the risk. It's important to highlight. I will participate in everything related to Global Sumud, but my main focus is on Gaza. That's the main thing. Even everyone from the activists on the Global Sumud, their focus, and they always mention this, that our focus is Gaza, not us. And that's a very important thing to tag and to put as a highlight. We don't want to grab the spot from Gaza to Global Sumud. Global Sumud is a way to Gaza, not the countries.
Ho apprezzato molto questa cosa che hai detto, anche perché sì, è vero, forse la tendenza degli occidentali è sempre quella di spostare l'occhio sull'occidentale per non vedere quello che realmente sta accadendo. E invece mi piace molto l'approccio che hai e di sempre cercare di spostare l'occhio di chi ti ascolta, delle persone con cui parli, sugli ultimi della società, su quelli che stanno soffrendo realmente e su coloro che necessitano veramente appunto dell'aiuto di tutti noi. E chiuderei, se sei d'accordo, ricordando una frase che tu stesso hai citato in un articolo del Manifesto qualche giorno fa in occasione della liberazione di Abdel Fattah, che Abdel Fattah nel 2011, quindi 14 anni fa, ha scritto che Gaza è la prova della coscienza del mondo. Cosa vuol dire questa frase oggi alla luce di quello che sta accadendo?
Yeah, it's really obvious. Ala Fattah have a very good vision that Gaza is the real exam of everything, of the fundamentals that the Western countries tried so much to push us to study about, learn about, listen about, and they all fail in the exam of what's democracy, what's human rights, what's international law. All of them didn't respect all of those stuff that they were always talking about in television and their speeches. They fail in the exam of really putting the measurements on everyone. Those ideas of democracy, human rights, international law are only only exclusive for the Western people, for the white people. The colored people, the Muslim people, the Arab people are not included in such like fundamental such ideas. It's very important thing to think about it and to rethink about how we can include everyone in those ideas. Ala Fattah have this vision, and it's true right now because it's the first time in the history to see a televised genocide for 2 years, and we still have a head of a country that's teasing people to stop the Global Sumud Gaza from going to Gaza because she's having a patriarchal sense of that, no, I care about it. It's not a caring about you. It's a complicity in genocide because the government of Italy, the government of Germany, the government of USA are complicit in the genocide. They are playing an important role in what's happening right now in Gaza. So we are in front of a very, very risky moment, and Gaza is the real examination to see the humanity and the believing in ideas and fundamentals, and who's really believing in that and who's not believing in that, and who have double standards and who don't have double standards. We saw what happened in Ukraine, how everyone dealt with what happened in Ukraine, but on contrast for that, how they deal with what's happening in Palestine. So that's how I think about it, and how I really appreciate the vision of Ala Abdel Fattah and what he wrote like few years ago, even before we passed by this genocide ongoing right now. And that's how I think about it.
Ti ringrazio nuovamente e penso che le parole che hai appena detto e in generale le risposte che hai avuto alle nostre domande siano costruttive e possano aiutare le persone che le ascoltano a riflettere su quello che sta accadendo e soprattutto a mettere in dubbio il nostro ruolo all'interno della società civile.
I'm really happy to be with you today. I'm really happy to be here in the festival, and I'm really pleased always to have an interviews with young people like you that give me more hope that we can make a real change in this community and in the media outlets to have more independent voices like yours and your colleagues. So I'm really happy to be here today and to participate in the festival for the first time. And finally, I want to say that I'm really right now not focusing so much because I'm really afraid about my colleagues on Global Sumut Flotia, who I really appreciate their work. I appreciate their activism. They choose to risk their lives. They choose to go to the prisons, one of the worst prisons in the world, inside the occupied lands, to try to broke the siege over Gaza and to try to help and stop genocide. They are really believing in the fundamentals of human rights more than a lot of governments that choose the silence over breaking the siege over Gaza. I really appreciate their work. I really appreciate what they are doing. They are risking their life, but they are real heroes who believe in human rights in a right way, in an inclusive way. So I'm thinking so much about them, and I'm always wishing them to be safe. And let's participate in the Shopiro domani. It's very, very important. And let's think about like facciamo rumore e sempre Palestina libera.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille.